Speedway Motorsports Incorporated, SMI for short, is one of the more known companies that operates facilities that make up a lot of the NASCAR schedule. If you see this logo by the track name, you know it's a SMI track. Even though SMI owns 11 facilities, which doesn't sound like a lot, most of these tracks have had second dates or used to have a second date. When you look at these lists of tracks, most of them have had great racing at their peak, and some of them are providing great racing to this day. Now obviously I'm going to dive into the SMI tracks that got screwed up by repaves and reconfigurations, but what's interesting about some of these tracks is that they've had reconfigurations and repaves done in the past, but it didn't harm the track for the worse. You look at Atlanta Motor Speedway reconfiguration in 1997. It wasn't a bad track at all before they redid the track, but afterwards it became a fan favorite as the racing peaked there from about 2000 to 2012. Bristol Motor Speedway is another track that experienced a change in the past, but once again, it didn't ruin the track. Bristol went from asphalt to concrete in 1992. When people think back on a lot of great Bristol memories, it's after they switched to concrete. And Bristol was already a great track when it was asphalt, but once again, a change to the track didn't ruin it. But then you jump forward in time to where SMI went on a streak of just baffling decisions. Now I understand repaves are warranted if the track is coming apart. At that point there's no fighting it, just repave the damn track. But the execution of these repaves have been piss poor, not to mention SMI also deciding to reconfigure these tracks. And it's not one of those ideas that sound good on paper, but ideas that just sound dumb in general. So let's go over each track that SMI has screwed up. Let's start off with Kentucky, a track that was built around the boom period for NASCAR but didn't hold a cup race there until 2011. The Trucks and Xfinity Series raced there and it was a solid track. Nothing special, but it didn't suck. It was one of those tracks right in the middle when it came to the racing product. When the Cup Series went there in 2011, the track was pretty worn out. The track was known for its super aggressive bumps at that point. The Cup Series had decent races there. The best one would have to be 2015 where NASCAR experimented with low downforce for this race and it turned out to be good. In 2016 the track got a repave, and the main reason why is because of weepers, which made drying the track really difficult when the track was wet. The track also had a slight change in banking when it came to turns 1 and 2 where it went from 14 degrees to 17 degrees. Turns 3 and 4 will remain the same, which was 14 degrees. I wouldn't say the banking change made the racing worse, but more so just really fresh pavement. Before the repave, drivers could run everywhere in both turns, and unfortunately, with a repave, it eliminated that. And that's typical for a repave. But where SMI really screwed up is putting PJ1 on the track. That stuff will work at times, and it's times where it doesn't. It's never consistent outside of Bristol. It's supposed to be a grip strip so certain lanes that has PJ1 on it can be utilized, but if anything, it made it more dangerous running where that stuff is applied. And even when it did work, it would make that groove dominant, which means it was pretty much a one groove track again. I really wish they would have just left the track alone and just let it age naturally instead of trying to put some type of chemical down on the track. But their first mistake is paving this track too well. And this isn't just an SMI issue, but something we've seen from other tracks not owned by SMI. Michigan, for example, got repaved in 2012, and here we are over 10 years later and it has barely aged. Racetracks in general need to start paving these tracks where they will age pretty quickly instead of paving it like how they would pave a highway. You want the surface to wear out quickly because it would help the on-track product. Unfortunately, Kentucky didn't do a good job with their repave, and it has led to poor racing, and now it's not even on the NASCAR schedule anymore. Atlanta Motor Speedway has been recently added to the list of tracks that SMI has screwed up. Like I stated earlier, when Atlanta went to a quad oval in 1997, it didn't affect the racing product for the worse. If anything, it had a lot of classic finishes and great racing for years. It got super worn out into the 2010s and became a track that chewed tires up, kinda like Rockingham. The product was still solid throughout the 2010s, but you knew a repave was coming because the surface was old as hell. The drivers loved it and didn't want it repaved. The fans, on the other hand, were divided. That's not shocking at all. Around the late 2010s into the 2020s, Atlanta wasn't the fan favorite it once was. It seemed like the bottom lane was the lane that became dominant, especially on the long run. If you ran high, you was just burning your tires up, so drivers bottom feed the whole race and it made fans dislike the on-track product. I definitely think the cars not being that great played a factor, of course, but it wasn't a secret that Atlanta became a bottom feeding track. The good news for a short while at least is that the track wasn't coming apart. But funny enough, after SMI announced that they were going to repave and reconfigure it, the track started tearing apart in its last race in 2021 by the start-finish line. Yeah, the track needed a repave, but goddamn SMI went about it all wrong. So they pretty much made this track a mini super speedway. They increased the banking by 4 degrees, but decreased the width of the track, especially on the backstretch. So let me get this straight. You want this track to race like Daytona and Talladega, but you made it to where these guys don't have anywhere to go. Instead of getting 3 and 4 wide racing like at super speedways, you're going to have a train of 2 lanes at most. Then the track is smaller than Daytona and Talladega. The radius is shorter, which means the drivers are turning more, which means you're going to have to handle, especially when the tires wear. This whole thing is so stupid. It shouldn't have been a mini super speedway to begin with. They didn't even get any input from drivers before they repaved and reconfigured the place. I remember drivers being furious when they announced this, and you had just about every driver trash the new Atlanta. Even the guys that aren't outspoken was crapping on it. Atlanta is a race I can't even look forward to anymore. They could have kept everything the same and just repaved it, or they could have went back with the pre-1997 Atlanta when it was a smaller homestead. Anything else would have been better than this. Now, I will give them credit. They didn't repave this track too well. Whatever they did is made the track age really quick. The track already has like a grayish look to it and has some seams. Eventually, it's going to become a handling track and then won't be grouped up anymore. When that becomes the case, they should ditch the super speedway package and just let them haul ass. Until then, this version of Atlanta is going to continue to suck. Next up is Bristol. I can't say it's been screwed up once or even twice, but 3 freaking times. The first screw up came way back in the year 2007 when new concrete was laid down on Thunder Valley. That wasn't the only thing done to the track though. Progressive banking was added, and this changed the racing drastically at Bristol. Bristol has always been a track where the bottom lane is preferred. It was one of the fastest way around the track, so everyone is running down there. When everyone is running in the same lane at a short track, there's going to be some bumping going on, and that was the case frequently. That led to Bristol being a fan favorite. Drivers getting bumped out the way and wrecked had the fans excited, which is why Bristol became such a valuable ticket for so many years. But that changed after the repave. Progressive banking made Bristol a multi-groove track. The bottom worked, the middle worked, the outside lane worked. No matter where you ran on the track, you could make time. This led to cleaner racing at Bristol because nobody wasn't really bumping each other out of the way anymore. This of course led to fans being upset and people stopped showing up. Now, even though the racing wasn't bad, Bristol did lose that charm. Drivers would usually leave that track pissed off at each other, but that wasn't the case anymore. Bruton Smith heard the complaints from fans and tried, I repeat, tried to give fans the old Bristol back. In 2012, they tried to remove progressive banking by grinding the top of the track. After this change, the top was overpowered. Yep, they made the very top side at Bristol the preferred lane, and this led to even worse racing at the facility. Have no fear though, PJ1 is here to save the day for once. SMI applied PJ1 to the bottom of the track to make the bottom usable, and it worked really well. When you watch a modern day Bristol race, it will start off as a bottom feeding race. It looks like the old Bristol for like the first 100 laps. But as the race goes on, the PJ1 starts to wear off and the lane starts to move to the top. So I guess the cool thing is that the track is constantly changing throughout the race, but it's a damn shame that PJ1 is the go-to solution just to get the bottom lane to work. I don't know where y'all stand, but I like pre-2007 Bristol where it was a conveyor belt around the bottom. I don't hate current Bristol, it's solid for now, but it's not what Bristol used to be. It has its moments. So I guess I can move on to the next track on this list. Oh wait a minute, that's right, they made another bad change with Bristol. Putting dirt on Bristol Motor Speedway. Oh my god, look at it, it's downright horrible. Just when you thought they were done messing around with Bristol, they decided to do something else with it. The spring Bristol race was a ghost town throughout the 2010s, and SMI felt like they needed to do something different. I don't think they needed to because the race was affected by rain so many times throughout the 2010s. Instead of moving it out of a rainy month, they decided to put dirt on the track. A racetrack that, yes, wasn't as good as it once was after the 2007 repave, but it was still a solid track. It still provided good racing, and that's the thing that makes it so frustrating. Also, they could have went to an actual dirt track if they wanted cup cars to race on dirt. So this move was not it. Attendance kinda increased after they added dirt, but that's because it was something new. It had people interested, so of course people were going to show up. But the newness eventually wore off. Putting dirt on Bristol is one of the most unnecessary moves I've seen in a while. Ladies and gentlemen, I saved the worst for last. Texas Motor Speedway. Oh my god, where shall I begin? Well, before the disaster that happened in 2017, Texas Motor Speedway was a solid track. The peak years was about 2005 to about the last race on the old pavement, which was the fall race in 2016. Look how wide this track was at one point, every groove being used and was capable of being fast. That would disappear after the repave. Why did they repave Texas? Just like with Kentucky, it was because of difficulty drying the track because of the surface being so old. The track was fine for the most part. Of course, they couldn't just repave it without doing something drastic with the damn track. Turns 3 and 4 remained the same, but 1 and 2 underwent huge changes. They decreased the banking by 4 degrees and widened the turn out. So yeah, the track was quote unquote unique, but it didn't produce good racing at all. The top lane is super dangerous. Even with PJ1 or whatever the hell they applied, it wasn't usable. So guess what? It's followed the leader down the bottom for the most part, and that's not ideal because of how aero sensitive the cup cars are nowadays. Even though turns 3 and 4 didn't have any changes made, it's a corner that drivers can go flat out. Even when they ran 750 horsepower with low downforce, they were barely off the gas. When everyone is flat out in the corner, it makes it impossible to pass. So you got a very shitty product with all this. Texas Motor Speedway is ruined. It's no saving this track when it comes to NASCAR racing. Yeah, just NASCAR racing, because on the other hand, IndyCar can actually produce a good Texas race. Well, now they can. When SMI put that PJ1 shit up high, it made the Indy cars undrivable when they tried to run in it. So for a while, Texas was a one groove track for the series. But as the PJ1 has slowly started to wear off, IndyCar recently has been putting on better races there. It's still not great, but it's gotten to the point to where they can somewhat move around on the track. I don't know how Texas Motor Speedway future looks. Fans absolutely hate the track, drivers as well. I never seen the track get this much hate before. It's pretty incredible, to be honest. Yes, the track is having a somewhat resurgence with IndyCar at least, but it's still putting on bad racing in NASCAR. I don't think it matters what NASCAR does with the cars. I don't think this track can produce a good race with how the track currently is. You could have the Gen 4 cars out there on the track with how the way it is, and it still wouldn't put on a good race. This is by far the biggest track screw up by SMI, and nothing comes close. That's about it. Even though it's only 4 tracks out listed in this video, they were pretty big screw ups by SMI. Unfortunately, these tracks are in a pretty bad state at the moment, but hopefully, I repeat, hopefully, SMI doesn't mess up another track. I don't want any more tracks getting screwed up. But SMI just has a recent history of doing that, which is why I highlighted the tracks they messed up. So, what's your thoughts on this? I would ask which track received the biggest screw up from SMI, but I already know everyone's going to say Texas, so that's pretty easy. I'll ask this: do y'all think Texas Motor Speedway can be saved, and do y'all see SMI screwing up another track of theirs in the future? Let me know in the comments. I'm going to go ahead and roll up out of here. Y'all have a good one. Peace.